So you're actually pretty well known overall in the competitive community, but for those who don't know, can you give us a little bit about your background or what it is you do?
So I'm CdJrcxx. I've played Warband for 9 years. I believe I joined the Rebels around 2011. Played for multiple teams, including tournament-winning teams such as Blue Bloods. I've been on Nations Cup, I believe 2 or 3 times. And currently, I am co-captain for RCC, a competitive Bannerlord clan right now.
So to start off asking about positives, is there anything about Bannerlord that you really like or would even call a definitive upgrade from Warband?
So, obviously, it looks a lot better. I'm sure like that's undisputable. And I know that's you want to hear some other things. So, I think it's pretty good for big battles. You can. I think one thing I've said is like the game feels like it's been balanced for lots of big units and shit like that. Compared to Warband, like it's hard to say that there's glaring things that I do really like about it, which isn't a good thing. Again, I do like the graphics. I think the graphics are a much more up to date for obvious reasons. You know, it's a newer game, but besides that, I don't know. I'm having a hard time naming things that I really like or at least prefer compared to Warband.
I see, so can you narrow it down to what mechanics in particular that you dislike?
It does not feel nearly as smooth. I feel like it, especially when it comes to melee, I feel like it removes a lot of the intricacies that were required of actually being skilled. Like I feel like footwork is almost. I feel like it's dumbed down a lot. I feel like you can't punish people for stepping out of places easily. I feel like even if you do manage to get in someone's face, like in an attempt to punish them, like you're just not going to be able to do enough damage. You're not going to be able to really catch them for long enough. Like for example, in the game, you have to hit them with the sweet spot of your weapon, right? So you can't really just hug them, but at the same time, say they just have like a javelin out or some shit, or something like that, and you make them do the stun animation, like you're not going to get a lot of damage, and they can just switch weapons super quickly. The issue I mostly have with it is it seems like most of the time, like angles and footwork don't really apply. So like in melee, it's like there's no real way it seems to get an upper hand on someone in a way that that is meaningful. Like it seems really just click block, and you can feint or you can hold, but you know how often will someone actually fall for tricks like that? Like it's nearly impossible to really you can't tilt slash, you can't really do anything. Like you're just if they're looking at you, there's nothing you can do.
So, while there has been a lot of frustration with the current mechanics of Bannerlord, as the transition has been pretty rough for a lot of Warband players, the same isn't so across the board. For instance, we have players like Whalefish, who, while he was a good shot in Warband, he wasn't extremely highly acclaimed. Whereas in Bannerlord, he is, if not the best shot in the game right now, as far as NA is concerned, anyway. Would it be fair to say that Bannerlord requires a completely different set of skills, or at least different enough to the point where players from Warband can't succeed in places where some others can in Bannerlord?
Yeah, so you can definitely say that. So one thing with Whalefish is he was not as nearly as accurate in Warband with archery as he is now in Bannerlord, but so Whalefish, he plays lots of first-person shooters and shooters in general. He's very good at putting his cursor over someone's head, basically, and that skill corresponds better in Bannerlord than it does in Warband. Because in Warband, while your aim is not specific, you know, there's drop, yeah, reach, all that kind of stuff. Whereas in Bannerlord, it kind of is point and click. Now, I don't know if that's what really gives him the skill. I don't know if that is at all, but that's my input on it. He's much better at doing stuff like that. Again, he's like legendary eagle or something in Face It for CS:GO. So he's not bad at just snapping onto people's head if he has to. So he's really good at that. And I guess that set of skill does correspond better to Bannerlord than it would in Warband. But on top of that, though, like he's when it comes to other aspects of the game, though, like he's definitely not bad. Like he's not really bad at melee. He understands positioning better than other more seasoned archer players in Warband and Bannerlord. So I think there are a few things that maybe you just picked up in Bannerlord that he could not pick up in Warband as easily.
Okay, so can you give us your opinion on the current state of Bannerlord? Like, what's the variety like?
Variety? Well, unfortunately for variety right now, if you're talking about the matchmaking, there's not much variety. You're either going to get in a game with pubs, and it's going to be really easy. Well, for I guess more like veteran, more skilled players, like it's going to be pretty easy. Or maybe you'll like find another. You might get in a game with like other skilled players that are also veterans that you probably recognize because you've seen each other for years now. But as for that, like that kind of gets stale because it feels like you're either pub stomping or you're getting stomped or something like that. Like it's very rare. It seems to actually have even matchups in matchmaking. So that's the variety. It seems you're either stomping or getting stomped.
So, as I'm sure you know, there's been a lot of discussion on the forums or even in game about clans curb stomping all the new players. Do you think this had a negative impact on the game's growth at launch to now? And do you think this is even the player's fault that this could happen in the first place? Or did it have a positive effect in teaching new players? What do you think about it?
I don't think it's the player's fault. I think it did negatively impact the community. Obviously, like you look at release day, I think we had like, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I think I remember seeing like 100,000 players searching at one time. That's that's a pretty big number, especially when you're talking about Mountain Blade. So the fact that that's dwindled down to like now you got about 25 queuing maybe at once in Bannerlord in just 2 months, that's an issue. And do I think it's? I kind of do think it's because players felt like they were getting punished, or like they were getting killed for reasons that they just didn't really understand yet, because there were players that were more veteran. But I don't really think that's the player's fault. Like, there should have been, before they made this public, I feel like they should have made it I feel like they should have had MMR of some sort, and maybe we wouldn't have we wouldn't have seen as many players leave, because they were actually in more competitive matches where they felt like they weren't getting murdered, just 24/7 slaughtered, versus stacks and stuff like that.
In your opinion, what does the future of Bannerlord look like? What do you see for its future?
For its future, well, here's what I kind of want to compare it to. So you had EA's Battlefront 2, right? That kind of, people didn't really like it for a while, and people kind of like gradually got away from it. But I think it was pretty recently, like a few months ago, maybe around the time that Bannerlord came out, that or a little bit before that actually, that there's an update and it actually got really popular again. I actually got back into playing it for a little bit. So I don't think that the game is, I don't think it would be fair to give up on it yet. I don't think that, I think it would be completely possible to revive it and get a good player base again. I think what they would have to do is, is at least separate more veteran players from the newer ones, because it's just really unfair. Like even now when you go into TDM, like lots of the newer players stick to TDM that are sticking around, and it seems totally unfair. It's like it's kind of similar to Warband, where it doesn't really feel like you're limited as a skilled player. It kind of just feels like you can do whatever you want, and they just simply don't know what to do, which I don't think is an issue with the game. I think it just, you got players that are willing to learn, and then you got players that won't. I think one issue with Mount and Blade games is that it's one of those games that you can't really pick up by yourself. You really need someone to teach you. You know, you need good examples, and when you got which kind of contradicts what I was saying about MMR. But here's the thing: like, if you're not having fun, and if you quit the game because you're not having fun, then it was a failure. And whereas, like, it's okay if, like, you're not as good if you're having fun, because this is a game after all. But then you gotta. But if you want to get good, like, yeah, you kind of need to mix in with the right crowd. Like, you can't just sit around and keep swinging at meat bags, basically, that don't really know how to play the game and expect to get better.
Do you think the game has or had any esports potential? And if so, how large do you see it getting?
So, I feel like if it was done right, yeah, it does. I think, you know, maybe I'm a little bit biased because, let's be honest, dude, wouldn't want it to kind of happen at this point. You know, 9 years of playing the game, you know, it would be nice if you got something back out of it, but maybe I'm a bit biased, but I feel like it could be done, and I feel like it could be pretty entertaining. I guess it's a little bit hard for newer players to realize what's going on at all times and what's going on behind the scenes when you got like 6v6 of skilled players with all the tactics and metas going on. But I don't know. I hope there's a way for it to to be more popular than it is.
So obviously we don't know what was going on behind the scenes, the marketing, anything like that. But do you think that early access was the right call for the game? Do you think it hurt the future of the game? And does it have very much of a promising future?
Yeah. I think it has a future. As to whether or not it's just gonna be the same future that Warband had for 9 years, or if there's gonna be a different future where maybe we see what we had more on EA or early access launch, where we had 100,000 players playing. I don't know. Either way, you know, there's gonna be a Mount and Blade community. I feel like if it's done right, it could regain a lot of the player base, but just gonna, you know, I'm not a marketing director, so.
So from your point of view, are the devs doing a very good job of listening or communicating? Are they listening to complaints, or is it nothing?
Well, I'm on the forums quite a bit. Every now and then you'll see like one developer actually communicate. I forget his name, but he'll kind of like talk on some of the boards and respond. But it almost seems like at this point the devs have given up on listening to a lot of the balancing recommendations we have and what we feel like should be done for skirmish. And by we, you know, I kind of do mean the elitist warband, like native competitive players. But I mean, it kind of sounds bad, but one way or another, they're, you know, we're kind of the ones that understand the game most, like the combat and the way it's played and all the, you know, basically the cap. We understand the cap better than anyone else, and when we're not being listened to, you know, the whole experience, the whole skill, it's just not really there.
If you were able to give any direct constructive advice or talk directly with the devs, what would you say that they need to do to help the game?
Well, I know they're working on it, but the ranks, the MMR, it's kind of a need. I understand that there's not a lot of players right now, but the ones that do come are just going to leave every time, almost every time. You almost never see the same like new players play for any more than a week. Kind of a problem in Warband too. Getting dedicated servers up might help that a little bit more, or private servers up. Modding tools, I wish they were released. Map editing tools, I wish they were released. I kind of just, basically, I really wish they would just let the community help them make the game at this point. Like I kind of wish they would open it up. I wish they would ask us to kind of try and get like a kind of get more community moderators, honestly, but community moderators that they actually talk to and listen to, that kind of know what's going on.
Well, thank you for all of those answers. That pretty much wraps it up for all the Bannerlord questions, but I'm going to shift gears over to Warband, as I do believe those two games are still very intertwined, as the communities are essentially the same. What would you describe as the current state of Warband?
Well, funny enough, I was playing on it earlier with Whalefish and Falmir, and there were no servers with populated NA people. There's a few on EU. To be fair, we got there kind of early for your average Warbander. I was there like 11 Central. So maybe it was a little bit too early for most people. I know they get still like TDM gets some people, but it's kind of dying. Even more so than usual. I know that we've said it's been dying for 4 or 5 years, but it's really in the sorriest state it's ever been. Lagstro's trying to keep it alive with his weekend tournaments, but I've only went to one of those, so I don't really know how well they're doing.
Okay, but did it initially help Warband's situation at all? I know a lot of people were hoping that once Bannerlord came out, the sheer number of new players would trickle down to Warband and would increase the numbers overall for the competitive community.
Well, lots of people were playing Warband in anticipation for Bannerlord, I think, just because the game was, even Warband, like, it's really old. It gets kind of stale to go on a TDM and just pub stomp, or you know, it gets kind of old to just play against the same teams over and over again. It gets stale. So I think lots of people were sort of just playing Warband in anticipation for the predecessor, or the next game to come out, the sequel. And then once they got it and realized, well, I waited 9 years, however long, 10 years for this, and this is all it is, they kind of just gave up, you know? You can't really blame them for that. You know, you got WK playing Last Oasis now, and like I think the BKS guys too. So it was rough.
Does Warband have any more of a future in your opinion? Do we have any chance of seeing a resurgence of players for whatever reason?
I don't really see a whole lot of new players getting back into it anymore, especially with Bannerlord coming out. I mean, you have to realize, your average consumer that doesn't own Warband is going to play Bannerlord, and if they don't like Bannerlord, why in earth would they buy Warband? That'd be like buying, I don't know, like Mass Effect 2, hating the story, and then deciding to play Mass Effect 1 or something like that. I don't know. It's like, why? Like, they're not going to do that. I feel like there's not going to be many new players going to Warband, and I think, I don't necessarily think that means it's going to completely be desolate, but I think you're probably just going to see the same diehard Warband players, similar to myself, that will still play the game every now and then, hop on, maybe do these weekend tournaments from Lagstro.
Special thank you to CdJrcxx for taking so much time away to do this interview. There's a lot of questions, but we got through it. If you have any suggestions, please post them. And with that, it comes to a close. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. And please remember, be good to one another.